Jamila Butler, a modest young black woman, walks into an upscale jewelry store ready to buy herself something special. But instead of service, she's met with prejudice and shown the door. What happens when those who judged her discover the power she actually holds? If you're new, make sure to subscribe and join us in every new journey. Jamila steps into the diamond vault, her simple dress standing out against the luxury of the store. The place is dazzling, with crystal chandeliers, shiny marble floors, and glass cases filled with sparkling gems. Despite her modest attire, Jamila strides with a quiet confidence that radiates strength. As she moves through the store, people start to notice. The staff exchange glances, looking surprised and unsure. Customers whisper behind their hands, judging her based on her clothes. The tension in the air hints at the prejudice lurking just beneath the surface. But they don't know that true wealth doesn't always show on the outside. How will this story of misjudgment unfold? Let's find out. Jamila shares a home with her father and sisters, but her life is very different from what you might expect from a comfortable family. Her daily routine is focused on managing her responsibilities and studying hard. However, beneath her simple appearance is a kind heart. Jamila loves helping others and works quietly to make a difference. She spends her time and resources on charitable causes, helping those often overlooked by society. You might find Jamila volunteering at a local orphanage, reading stories to children or assisting them with their homework. Her gentle presence brings comfort and joy, giving the kids the care and attention they need. Sometimes, Jamila visits nursing homes, where she spends time with elderly residents who often feel forgotten. She listens to their stories, plays games with them, or just holds their hands, providing companionship that brightens their days. Jamila also supports various causes financially, but she does this anonymously. She believes in giving without seeking recognition, focusing on the impact of her contributions instead. Her commitment to helping others comes from a deep understanding of privilege and responsibility. Despite her family's wealth, Jamila sees the struggles many people face and feels a strong desire to help. She often says, "To whom much is given, much is expected," which guides her actions. Jamila's approach to charity is personal and hands-on. She doesn't just write checks, she invests her time and energy into her causes. This involvement lets her see the real-world effects of her work and fuels her passion for service. Her dedication to education is just as impressive. Jamila studies hard, knowing that knowledge is a powerful tool for change. She wants to use her education to manage her responsibilities better and contribute meaningfully to society. Even though her family is well known, Jamila prefers to stay out of the spotlight. She values her privacy and believes her actions should speak louder than any public image. This low-key approach helps her avoid the pressures that often come with wealth and status. Jamila's simple lifestyle is a choice, reflecting her values and priorities. She emphasizes substance over style and impact over image. In a world focused on appearances, Jamila keeps her attention on what truly matters. As we learn more about Jamila's story, we begin to see the complexity beneath her simple exterior. Her choices raise interesting questions about wealth, success, and what truly makes a person valuable. When Jamila's phone rang, she didn't know that her normal day was about to change in a big way. What surprise did her dad, Henry Butler, have for her, and how would it affect her simple life? Jamila picked up the call, and her father's warm voice came through. "Sweetheart, can you come by my office today? I want to talk to you about something." Curious, Jamila agreed, wondering what it could be. Henry's office was in the Apex, a towering skyscraper that stood proudly in the heart of the city. As she made her way through the bustling streets, she couldn't help but feel excited and a bit nervous. The lobby of the Apex was impressive, with shiny floors and modern design. Jamila smiled at the receptionist as she headed to the elevator. her plain dress standing out among the fancy suits around her. When she entered Henry's office, he welcomed her with a warm hug. The room had a beautiful view of the city, showing the Butler family's success. But Jamila was focused on her dad, not the wealth around them. "How are your studies?" Henry asked, genuinely interested. Jamila eagerly shared about her latest projects, and Henry listened with pride. They talked about Henry's work, and Jamila leaned in, curious. "How's the new development coming along, Dad?" she asked, referring to a project he mentioned at dinner. Henry's face lit up as he explained the challenges and successes he faced. Jamila listened closely, asking smart questions that showed her growing interest in business. As their talk wrapped up, Henry looked more serious. "Jamila, there's something else I wanted to discuss," he started. But Jamila interrupted, excited. "Oh, Dad, before I forget, I heard there's a new store in the Apex," she said. "The Diamond Vault, right? I've been thinking about getting some new earrings. Can I check it out before I go home?" Henry smiled warmly. "Of course, sweetheart. Go ahead. We can talk more later." Jamila hugged her dad goodbye, her mind racing with thoughts of the beautiful things she hoped to find at the Diamond Vault. As she headed down to the store, she felt a rush of excitement. The idea of buying herself diamond earrings made her happy. She usually lived simply and focused on helping others, but today felt special. A reward for her hard work in school and her charity efforts. When the elevator doors opened on the floor with the Diamond Vault, Jamila took a deep breath, smoothing her plain dress. She stepped out, her eyes immediately drawn to the shiny storefront. Jamila's plain dress stood out against the luxury around her. As she walked into the Diamond Vault, she felt a wave of judgment from those inside. Would her inner strength shine brighter than the diamonds on display? The glass doors of the Diamond Vault opened, revealing a world of luxury. Crystal chandeliers lit up the shiny marble floors, and display cases sparkled with gems. The air smelled of expensive perfumes and heavy expectations. Jamila's comfy flats were silent on the soft carpet. Her simple dress, chosen for comfort rather than style, seemed to blend into the surroundings. She could feel the change in the atmosphere, like a sudden chill in the air. As she walked deeper into the store, people turned to look at her. A group of well-dressed women paused their chat, watching her with curiosity. A couple looking at watches raised their eyes, surprised and a bit judgmental. The staff, dressed in sharp suits, exchanged glances. One young man with slicked-back hair took a step toward Jamila, but quickly stopped and went back behind the counter. Jamila felt their stares pressing down on her. Her heart raced, and she had to remind herself to breathe normally. She had faced prejudice before, but never so openly or so intensely. The urge to leave was strong, but she fought against it. Instead, she focused on why she was there: to buy a pair of diamond studs as a small reward for her hard work. Jamila lifted her chin, reminding herself that she belonged there, no matter what anyone else thought. As she looked at a case filled with sparkling earrings, she saw her reflection in the glass. Her simple look seemed even more noticeable in such a fancy place. For a moment, she wondered if she was silly to think she fit in. Then she remembered her father's words from earlier, his pride in her achievements. She thought about the people she had helped through her charity work. Those actions were worth much more than any piece of jewelry. With renewed confidence, Jamila began to look at the earrings. She noticed the staff and customers still watching her, but she refused to let it stop her. As she leaned in to see a beautiful pair of studs, she heard whispers nearby. "What is she doing here?" a woman said. "She can't afford anything." "Maybe she's lost," another voice snickered. Jamila felt her cheeks heat up with anger and embarrassment. She wanted to turn around and confront them, to show that appearances can be deceiving, but she knew that would only prove their point. Instead, she took a deep breath and continued looking at the jewelry. As she moved from one display to another, she saw the staff change their behavior. They had been watching her closely, but now they were avoiding eye contact. No one came to help her, even though she was clearly interested in the jewelry. The weight of their judgment pressed down on Jamila. She could feel her palms getting sweaty and her throat tightening. What should have been a simple shopping trip for earrings had turned into a stressful experience. But Jamila was used to facing challenges. She had dealt with difficulties in her studies and her charity work. This uncomfortable situation was just another hurdle to overcome. She straightened her shoulders and kept searching, determined not to let others' prejudices stop her. As she looked at a beautiful pair of diamond studs, a small smile formed on her face. These earrings were more than just a purchase. They represented her hard work and commitment. No amount of judgment from strangers could take that away from her. The shine of diamonds can be dazzling, but it can't compare to the harm caused by prejudice. As Jamila admired the earrings, she had no idea that she was about to become the focus of a storm brewing in the diamond vault. Would her inner strength be enough to handle what was coming? Jamila's fingers hovered over a beautiful pair of diamond studs, her heart racing with excitement. These were exactly what she'd been saving for, a small reward for her hard work. She looked up, hoping to catch the eye of a sales associate, but saw only people looking away and shifting uncomfortably. A man in a sharp suit approached her, but his smile didn't seem genuine. This was Marcus Blackwell, the store manager, though Jamila didn't know that yet. He cleared his throat, making Jamila look up expectantly. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. Jamila's face brightened. "Yes, please. I want to see these diamond studs up close." Marcus's smile faded a bit. He glanced at her simple dress, and then the price tag on the earrings. "I'm not sure these would be suitable for you. Maybe I could show you something more fitting?" Confusion crossed Jamila's face. "I don't understand. These are exactly what I want." Marcus shifted awkwardly. "Well, these particular pieces are quite exclusive. Perhaps we could find something more in your budget?" Jamila's confusion turned to disbelief. "Sir, I can afford these earrings. I've been saving for them." Marcus's attitude changed and his politeness faded. "Listen, miss. I think there's been a misunderstanding. This isn't really the place for window shopping. We cater to a certain type of customer here." Jamila felt her cheeks burn with anger and embarrassment. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice calm. "I'm not window shopping. I came here to buy something." Marcus looked around nervously, seeing the stares from other customers. He lowered his voice. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We can't have you bothering our other customers." Jamila stood her ground, her quiet confidence showing. "I have every right to be here. I want to speak to the owner." Marcus's expression hardened. "The owner isn't available. Now, please leave before I have to call security." As the situation escalated, a well-dressed woman walked over. This was Elizabeth Cartwright, the store owner, but Jamila didn't recognize her. Elizabeth's eyes darted between Marcus and Jamila, assessing the situation. "Is there a problem here?" Elizabeth asked, her voice sharp and clear. Marcus turned to her, relief on his face. "Mrs. Cartwright, I was just explaining to this young woman that she might be more comfortable shopping elsewhere." Jamila's heart sank as she realized the owner was siding with the manager. She looked Elizabeth in the eye, her voice strong despite her hurt. "I came here to buy a pair of diamond studs. I've been saving for them and I can afford them. But I felt like I don't belong here since I walked in." Elizabeth's expression stayed neutral as she studied Jamila. "And why do you think that is?" Jamila hesitated, feeling the weight of the question. She knew the answer, but felt like saying it would be admitting defeat. "Because of how I look. Because I'm not dressed like your typical customer. Because I'm black." A tense silence fell over the store. Other customers pretended not to listen. but their sneaky glances showed they were interested in the drama. Elizabeth's gaze stayed on Jamila's face. "And what makes you think you can afford our jewelry?" Jamila's frustration boiled over. "I shouldn't have to prove my worth to be treated with respect in your store." As Jamila's passionate words filled the air, the atmosphere in the diamond vault was charged with tension. Elizabeth's expression remained unreadable, leaving everyone, including Jamila, unsure of what would happen next. The confrontation had reached a crucial moment, and the next few moments would decide whether justice or prejudice would win in this shiny place of wealth and status. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed, her decision clear like the diamonds around them, but in a twist no one expected. Whose world was about to break? Jamila's or the diamond vault's? The tension in the air was thick as Elizabeth, the store owner, stared at Jamila. For a moment, it seemed like she might change her mind. But then, her expression hardened, and she gave Marcus a short nod. "Mr. Blackwell, I believe you're handling this well," Elizabeth said coldly. "Please continue." Jamila's heart sank. She had hoped the owner might understand the unfairness of the situation. But now, it was clear that Elizabeth shared the same prejudices as her manager. Marcus adjusted his tie, a smug smile forming. "You heard Mrs. Cartwright. I must insist that you leave immediately." Jamila stood her ground, her hands clenched. "This is discrimination. You can't treat me this way because of how I look or the color of my skin." Elizabeth laughed, sharp and without humor. "This isn't about discrimination. It's about keeping a certain standard for our customers. Surely you understand." The words hurt, a reminder of the unfairness Jamila had faced all her life. She glanced around the store, seeing the mix of discomfort and satisfaction on the faces of other customers. Some looked away, avoiding the scene, while others watched with interest. Inside, Jamila felt torn. Part of her wanted to stand up and demand respect, but another part, the one used to handling unfair judgments, told her to walk away. The shame and anger burned inside her. "I understand perfectly," Jamila said, her voice calm. "You've made a big mistake judging me by my appearance, but I won't lower myself to your level by making a scene." She turned to leave, holding her head high despite the anger and sadness she felt. As she reached the door, Marcus called out, "Security will escort you out if you ever try to return." Jamila paused, her hand on the door handle. She glanced back at Elizabeth. "You might think you've won, but this isn't over." Jamila took a deep breath, trying to steady herself as the reality of what had happened hit her. She had been humiliated and treated unfairly in front of everyone. The weight of it was heavy, but Jamila refused to let it crush her spirit. She thought of her father and his lessons about staying strong in tough times. As Jamila left the diamond vault, feeling the weight of unfairness, fate was preparing for an unexpected twist. A sleek black car pulled up, and a distinguished man in a well-fitted suit stepped out. This was Henry Butler, though Jamila didn't notice him at first, her mind still focused on her recent humiliation. Henry observed the scene. He saw Jamila walking away with her shoulders back, despite looking tense. He then noticed the store owner and manager still talking animatedly, a frown appearing on his face as he pieced things together. As Henry approached the store, Jamila glanced back one last time. Their eyes met briefly, and a silent understanding passed between them. Henry's expression softened for a moment before he turned his attention back to the store. When Henry entered the diamond vault, the atmosphere changed completely. Elizabeth Cartwright's face shifted from smug satisfaction to eager excitement. Marcus Blackwell straightened his tie, a nervous smile replacing his earlier sneer. "Mr. Butler," Elizabeth exclaimed, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "What a surprise! How can we help you today?" Henry responded calmly but coolly. "Mrs. Cartwright, Mr. Blackwell. I was nearby and wanted to discuss some business matters." The difference in how they treated Henry compared to how they treated Jamila was clear. Where they had been rude to Jamila, they now fawned over Henry, hanging on his every word. As they led Henry to a private room at the back, he noticed whispers and curious looks from other customers. It was clear that his presence was causing a stir. Once seated in the comfortable private room, Henry got right to the point. "As you know, I own this building," he began, his voice calm and commanding. "I'm considering some changes and wanted to discuss them with you." Elizabeth leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. "Of course, Mr. Butler. We're always happy to help. What do you have in mind?" Henry paused, letting the tension build. "I plan to transfer ownership of this building to one of my daughters," he said, watching their reactions closely. "It's part of a larger change in my real estate holdings." Marcus and Elizabeth exchanged quick looks, their minds racing with the news. "That's great news, Mr. Butler," Elizabeth said, her voice forced cheerfulness. "Which of your daughters will be taking over?" Henry smiled slightly. "That's yet to be decided. I have 3 daughters, each with unique strengths. The final choice will be announced at the upcoming tenants' meeting." The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation and anxiety. Elizabeth and Marcus knew their future might depend on impressing Henry's chosen heir. "Is there anything we can do to ensure a smooth transition?" Marcus asked, his previous arrogance replaced with eagerness to please. Henry's expression stayed neutral. "Just continue to run your business normally," he said, "but I suggest you pay attention to how you treat all potential customers. You never know who might walk in." There was a hidden meaning in Henry's words that made Elizabeth and Marcus shift uncomfortably. Had he seen something? Did he know about what had happened with the young woman earlier? As the meeting ended, Henry stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. "I look forward to seeing you at the tenants' meeting," he said. "I'm sure it will be quite enlightening." With those final words, Henry left the diamond vault, creating a whirlwind of speculation and nervousness. As he stepped onto the street, he spotted Jamila in the distance, her head held high despite the earlier humiliation. As Jamila stepped out of the sleek black car at the Butler estate, she felt the weight of recent events between her and her father, Henry. Approaching the grand entrance, the difference between Jamila's simple outfit and the luxurious surroundings was clear. Inside, a story of wealth and unexpected power was unfolding. How would Jamila's recent humiliation affect the lives of her 3 very different sisters? The Butler family home was a symbol of success, with marble floors and sparkling chandeliers showing off their riches. When Jamila and Henry walked in, they heard laughter from one of the many sitting rooms. Victoria and Adeline, Jamila's sisters, were entertaining friends, their voices echoing in the hall. Victoria, the oldest sister, looked elegant in her designer dress and perfectly styled hair. She was known for her lavish parties and appearances in society magazines. Adeline, the middle sister, was also glamorous, with a social media following like many celebrities. Both sisters loved being in the spotlight, their every move watched by the public. Jamila paused in the doorway, observing her sisters from a distance. The contrast between them was striking. While Victoria and Adeline enjoyed attention, Jamila preferred to stay in the background, finding comfort in her quiet hobbies and charitable work. Henry gently placed a hand on Jamila's shoulder, showing support. He understood that his youngest daughter felt uneasy with the trappings of wealth, having watched her create her own path despite the family's riches. As they walked to Henry's study, the noise from the gathering faded. The room was a peaceful retreat, filled with books and the smell of leather and old paper. It was here that Henry had made many decisions to build his real estate business. "I saw what happened at the diamond vault," Henry said quietly, breaking the silence. Jamila looked up, surprised. "I was on my way to meet you when I saw the end of that unfortunate incident." Jamila's shoulders dropped slightly. "I didn't want you to see that," she admitted. "I thought I could handle it myself." Henry's eyes softened with pride and concern. "You handled it with more grace than most would," he reassured her. "But it made me think about our family's future." He moved to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "As you know, I've given each of you girls a building to manage. It was my way of ensuring you'd each have a part in the family business." Jamila nodded, remembering the day her father gave her the deed to a small office building on the outskirts of the city. Unlike her sisters, who hired management companies, Jamila had jumped in and learned how to manage the property herself. Victoria's building is the high-rise downtown, with the rotating restaurant on top. Adeline's is the luxury shopping center near the marina, Henry continued. He paused, smiling slightly. "And then there's yours." Jamila's building, while not as glamorous as her sister's, had thrived under her careful management. She had built good relationships with her tenants, implemented energy-saving measures, and even started a small business incubator program in the unused basement. "I've been watching how each of you handle your responsibilities," Henry said, his voice filled with pride and thought. "It's clear you each have different ways of approaching business and life." He leaned back in his chair, looking at Jamila. "Your sisters love the spotlight. They use their status to network and be seen, which has its value. But you, Jamila, have shown a deep understanding and commitment to caring for your responsibilities that goes beyond just owning property." Jamila felt warmth in her chest from her father's words. She had always wondered if her quieter way of managing her building was somehow not enough compared to her sister's more visible efforts. "I have decisions to make about the future of our family's holdings," Henry continued, growing more serious. "What happened today at the Diamond Vault made me realize that appearances can be deceiving and that true value isn't always obvious." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the well-kept gardens of the estate. "I want you to know I see you, Jamila. I see the work you do and the care you take. It hasn't gone unnoticed." As Henry turned back to her, Jamila felt a shift in the air, as if something significant was about to happen. She wondered how her father's words would lead to action and what that would mean for the future of the Butler family. The sound of silverware clinking against fine china filled the dining room as the Butler family sat down to eat. But beneath the surface of a normal family dinner, tension was building. How would Henry's secret plan for the Apex building change the delicate balance between his three very different daughters? Henry Butler sat at the head of the table, looking from one daughter to another. Victoria, the oldest, was focused on her phone, likely updating her social media. Adeline, the middle child, was sharing stories about her latest shopping spree. Jamila, on the other hand, was quietly eating her meal, still thinking about what had happened at the Diamond Vault. "Girls," Henry said, cutting through the chatter, "I have something important to talk about." The sisters went silent, now paying full attention to their father. Henry took a deep breath, his gaze resting on Jamila a moment longer. "As you know, I've been thinking about the future of our family's real estate holdings," he began. "I've decided it's time for some changes." Victoria perked up, her perfectly manicured nails tapping on the table. "Changes? What kind of changes, Daddy?" Henry smiled, but there was a serious look in his eyes that even made Adeline stop eating. "I've decided to give ownership of the Apex to one of you." The news hung in the air for a moment. The Apex was the crown jewel of the Butler Empire, a tall skyscraper in the center of the city. Its value was immense, both in money and status. "But Daddy," Adeline said, frowning, "we already have our own buildings. Why the Apex?" Henry nodded at her question. "The Apex is more than just a building. It represents our family's success and power. Whoever manages it will be in charge of our whole empire. Victoria's eyes sparkled with ambition. Well, I think it's clear who should take on that responsibility. My social connections would bring in high-profile tenants. Adeline agreed. And my eye for luxury would make the Apex the most sought-after address in the city. While they spoke, Jamila stayed silent, her eyes on her plate. Henry noticed her quietness and turned to her. Jamila, what do you think about this? She looked up, surprised he was asking her. I'm not sure I'm the right person for the Apex, Dad. My building is so much smaller, and I don't have the same connections as Victoria or Adeline. Henry's expression softened. Don't underestimate yourself, Jamila. I've been watching how each of you manages your properties. Victoria and Adeline, you both have your strengths. But Jamila, you've shown a level of dedication and understanding that goes beyond flashy events or luxury upgrades. Victoria and Adeline exchanged looks of surprise and confusion. What do you mean, Daddy? Victoria asked, her voice filled with worry. Henry leaned back in his chair, keeping his eyes on Jamila. Your sister has been quietly improving her building. She's made it more energy efficient, started a small business incubator, and built personal relationships with her tenants. She's turned a modest property into a thriving community. Jamila felt warmth in her cheeks from her father's praise. She hadn't realized he was paying such close attention to her work. But Dad, Adeline interrupted, the Apex is different. It needs someone who can handle the spotlight and network with the city's elite. Henry raised a hand to silence her. The Apex needs someone who understands that a building is more than just bricks and mortar. It needs someone who sees the potential in every square foot and every tenant. He turned to Jamila, his expression serious. That's why I've decided to give the Apex to you, Jamila. The room went quiet. Victoria's phone slipped from her hand and landed on her plate. Adeline's mouth dropped open in shock. Jamila looked like she might faint. But Dad, she stammered, I don't know if I can handle something that big. To everyone's surprise, Victoria spoke up. If anyone can do it, it's you, Jamila. Her voice was softer than usual. You've always worked the hardest and cared the most about the details. Adeline nodded and squeezed Jamila's hand. We might be better at getting our names in the papers, but you've been following in Dad's footsteps all along. Over the next few weeks, Jamila spent even more time at the Apex. Her father insisted she learn every part of the building's operations. They walked through the halls together, with Henry pointing out details about the design and management that Jamila had never thought about. During one visit, they paused in the lobby, looking at the big chandelier hanging above. You see, Jamila, Henry said, his voice calm. Running a building like this isn't just about collecting rent. It's about creating a place where businesses can succeed. Jamila nodded, taking in her father's words. She thought about her own smaller building and how she worked to create a sense of community among her tenants. Could she apply those same ideas here, on a much bigger scale? As they continued their tour, Jamila noticed a young man at the reception desk watching them closely. She recognized him as one of the employees from the Diamond Vault, the store that had treated her poorly just weeks ago. His eyes widened as he saw Jamila talking comfortably with Henry Butler, one of the city's top business figures. The young man, whose name tag read Alex, felt uneasy. He remembered the day Jamila had been asked to leave the store and how his colleagues had made fun of her simple clothes. Now, seeing her in a friendly conversation with Henry, he began to question what he thought he knew about her. Unaware of the stir they were causing, Jamila and Henry headed to the executive elevator. Once inside, Henry turned to Jamila, looking serious. There's an important meeting coming up, he said. All the tenants will be there. It's time to talk about the future of the Apex. Jamila felt nervous. Do you really think I'm ready for this, Dad? She asked softly. Henry's expression softened as he looked at her. You've been ready for a long time, Jamila. You just needed to believe in yourself. As the days went by, word spread through the Apex about the upcoming meeting. Rumors flew about possible changes in ownership, and everyone was guessing who might be taking over. The employees at the Diamond Vault felt anxious, knowing their treatment of customers might come under scrutiny with new management. Alex, the young employee who had seen Jamila with Henry, couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. He tried to share his thoughts with his colleagues, but they were too worried about their own futures to listen. The day of the meeting arrived, and tension filled the Apex's grand conference room. Tenants from all over the building came in, looking curious and concerned. The owner and manager of the Diamond Vault sat near the front, their usual confidence diminished. As the room settled, Henry Butler stepped up to the podium. He commanded attention, and everyone fell silent. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice strong. "As you know, the Apex has been a key part of our family business for many years. Today, I'm here to announce an important change in its management." A wave of whispers spread through the audience. Henry raised a hand to quiet them. "It's time for a new generation to take charge," he continued. "Someone who understands not just the business of real estate, but also the value of community and responsible management." The owner of the Diamond Vault leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. She had heard rumors about Henry's daughters, but couldn't believe he meant. Henry's next words confirmed her worst fears. "I'm proud to announce that the new owner and manager of the Apex will be my daughter, Jamila Butler." Henry's announcement hung in the air, and everyone in the room was silent as they processed the news. Jamila felt a wave of emotions wash over her: pride, nervousness, and a bit of vindication. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, before stepping up to the podium beside her father. The owner and manager of the Diamond Vault sat frozen in shock, their faces showing a mix of surprise and dread. They exchanged worried glances, realizing the weight of their earlier mistake. The young woman they had dismissed was now their landlord, holding power over their business. Jamila looked around the room and noticed the faces from the Diamond Vault. She could see the moment they recognized her, but instead of feeling satisfied, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Hurt from their past treatment, but also a sense of responsibility that came with her new role. "Thank you, Dad," Jamila said, her voice steady even though she felt butterflies in her stomach. "I'm honored by the trust you've placed in me, and I want everyone to know that I take this responsibility very seriously." She paused to collect her thoughts. The room was silent, all eyes on her. "The Apex isn't just a building," she continued. "It's a community of businesses that all contribute to our city's success. My goal is to support that community and create a space where every tenant can thrive." As Jamila spoke, her confidence grew. She shared her vision for the Apex: upgrades for energy efficiency, community events, and a small business support program like the one she had at her previous building. With each word, the tension in the room seemed to ease, replaced by a sense of cautious hope. Throughout her speech, Jamila noticed the changing expressions on the Diamond Vault's representatives. Their panic turned into something else, a mix of shame and hope. She saw the manager lean over to whisper to the owner, who nodded slowly. When Jamila finished her speech, she made a decision. "I look forward to working with all of you," she said, her eyes scanning the room before settling on the Diamond Vault's table. "My door will always be open for any discussions, concerns, or ideas. Your success is important to the Apex's success." With those words, Jamila stepped back, letting her father finish the meeting. As the tenants started to leave, murmuring to one another, she noticed the owner and manager of the Diamond Vault lingering behind. They approached her hesitantly, their body language very different from their earlier arrogance. "Ms. Butler," the owner started, her voice shaky, "we owe you an apology. Our behavior was wrong, and we hope you'll give us a chance to make things right." Jamila looked at them calmly, remembering the hurt and humiliation she had felt in their store. But she also recalled her father's words about responsibility in their positions. "Thank you for your apology," she replied. "I believe in second chances, and I hope we can work together professionally." The relief on their faces was clear. As they nodded and turned to leave, Jamila felt her father's hand on her shoulder. She looked up to see pride shining in his eyes. "You handled that beautifully," Henry said softly. "You're going to do great things here, Jamila." As the conference room emptied, Jamila took a moment to realize the reality of her new position. The apex towered above her, symbolizing her family's legacy and her own potential. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a rush of determination. This was her chance to prove herself and make a difference in ways she had only dreamed of before. The next morning, Jamila returned to the apex, still trying to get used to her new role as owner. She wondered how the tenants would react to her presence. The real test of her leadership was about to begin. As Jamila walked toward the big glass doors of the apex, she took a deep breath to calm her nerves. The building felt different today. Its sleek lines and shiny windows were no longer just impressive, but symbols of her new responsibilities. The security guard at the front desk looked up when she entered, his eyes widening in surprise. "Good morning, Ms. Butler," he said, mixing respect with surprise. Jamila smiled warmly, remembering how just yesterday she had walked through these doors unnoticed. "Good morning, John," she replied, recalling his name from her father's notes about the building's staff. "How are you today?" John's surprise turned into a genuine smile. "I'm well, thank you for asking, and congratulations on your new position." As Jamila walked through the lobby, she noticed the change in the atmosphere. Employees who had hurried past her before now paused to nod respectfully or say, "Good morning." The weight of her new role settled more firmly on her shoulders with each interaction. Her first stop was the small cafe on the ground floor. The owner, a cheerful man named Marco, greeted her with enthusiasm. "Ms. Butler, what an honor to have you here. Can I get you anything? It's on the house." Jamila politely declined the free offer, but ordered a coffee and chatted with Marco about his business. She listened carefully as he shared his hopes for expanding the cafe's menu, making mental notes on how she could help. As she continued through the building, visiting different tenants, Jamila was amazed by the variety of businesses in the apex. Each stop brought new challenges and opportunities, from a tech startup needing more flexible lease terms to a long-standing law firm worried about building maintenance. Throughout these visits, Jamila balanced being professional with being friendly. She listened more than she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and took notes. Many tenants were surprised by her hands-on approach, expecting a more distant owner. Finally, Jamila stood outside the diamond vault. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The fancy interior felt familiar, but the atmosphere had changed since her last visit. Elizabeth Cartwright, the owner, rushed forward as soon as she saw Jamila. Gone was the haughty attitude from before. Now she wore a nervous smile. "Ms. Butler, welcome to our store. We're so honored to have you here." Marcus Blackwell, the manager who had dismissed Jamila before, stood nervously in the background, his face showing discomfort and regret. "Thank you, Mrs. Cartwright," Jamila said calmly. "I wanted to check in with all our tenants today. How is business?" Elizabeth quickly began sharing details about the Diamond Vault's recent sales and upcoming promotions. As she spoke, Jamila noticed Marcus fidgeting, clearly wanting to say something but unsure how to jump in. Finally, when Elizabeth paused, Marcus stepped forward. "Ms. Butler," he said, his voice tense, "I want to apologize again for my behavior during your last visit. It was unprofessional and prejudiced. I'm really sorry." Jamila looked at him steadily, seeing the genuine remorse in his eyes. She remembered the hurt she felt that day, but also thought of her father's advice about the responsibilities of being a leader. "Thank you for your apology, Mr. Blackwell," she said calmly. "I appreciate your honesty. Moving forward, I hope we can keep a professional relationship based on mutual respect." Relief washed over Marcus's face, and Elizabeth nodded eagerly. "Of course, Ms. Butler. We're committed to doing better and treating all our customers with respect." As Jamila left the diamond vault, she felt a sense of closure. She had neither sought revenge nor allowed herself to gloat. Instead, she had set a tone of professionalism and dignity that she hoped would influence the whole building. In the days after Jamila became the new owner of the Apex, there was a noticeable change at the diamond vault. Elizabeth Cartwright and Marcus Blackwell began to face the consequences of their actions, their once strong confidence, now mixed with shame and doubt. Marcus, especially, struggled to come to terms with how he had treated Jamila, now knowing her true identity. He kept replaying their interaction, feeling embarrassed by his dismissive attitude and unfair assumptions. The weight of his mistake led him to reflect deeply on his behavior. Elizabeth, on the other hand, started to rethink the store's policies and practices. She realized that their focus on appearances and assumed wealth had not only lost them a valuable customer, but also revealed the prejudice within their company. The incident with Jamila made her question her ability to truly judge people. As the news of the incident spread through the Apex, other tenants and employees noticed. Many were impressed by how calm and graceful Jamila stayed, even when faced with clear discrimination. Her choice not to seek revenge or embarrass the Diamond Vault showed a lot about her strong character and leadership style. One employee, Alex, who had witnessed Jamila's dismissal from the store, found himself particularly moved by her grace under pressure. He approached Marcus one afternoon, his voice low but determined. "You know, I've been thinking about what happened with Ms. Butler," he said. "Maybe we need to rethink how we approach customer service. Not everyone who can afford our products looks like our typical clientele." Marcus nodded slowly, a mix of emotions playing across his face. "You're right, Alex. We've been operating under some pretty narrow assumptions. It's time for a change." Inspired by Jamila's example and wanting to make things right, the Diamond Vault's management started new training programs to focus on fairness and welcoming all customers. They brought in experts to talk to their staff about prejudice and how it affects people and businesses. The changes didn't stop there. Elizabeth decided to include more diversity in their ads, using models of different ethnicities and body types. They also added products at different prices, understanding that true luxury isn't always the most expensive. As these changes took place, the Diamond Vault saw more people feeling comfortable shopping there. Sales went up, and the store became known for its great, inclusive service. Jamila's experience had a bigger impact, too. Other businesses in the Apex noticed the Diamond Vault's changes and started looking at their own practices. Many realized they had also been influenced by unconscious bias and began making improvements. Jamila's calm and graceful response to the humiliation had set a strong example. Instead of reacting with anger or seeking revenge, she chose to lead by showing the kind of behavior that inspired others to improve. One afternoon, as Jamila walked through the Apex, she noticed a new sign in the Diamond Vault's window. "All are welcome here." She smiled slightly. As she stood there, Marcus stepped out of the store, meeting her eyes. For a moment, neither said anything. Then Marcus cleared his throat. "Ms. Butler," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to thank you. Your kindness in handling our mistake has changed everything, not just for the store, but for me personally. I'm trying to be a better person and manager, and it's because you chose kindness over revenge." Jamila nodded thoughtfully. "We all have room to grow, Mr. Blackwell. What's important is recognizing our mistakes and working to improve. I'm glad to see the positive changes you've made." As Jamila continued her walk through the Apex, she reflected on the changes she had seen. The incident at the Diamond Vault, though painful, had sparked a wave of positive change throughout the building. It reminded her that sometimes, and the best way to fight prejudice is through quiet dignity and strong integrity. Jamila stood at the window of her new office in the Apex, gazing out at the bustling city below. The events of the past few weeks had been a whirlwind, but through it all, Jamila had remained true to herself. Her father's decision to entrust her with the Apex had come as a shock to many, especially her sisters Victoria and Adeline. They had always been the ones in the spotlight, their lives a constant parade of designer clothes, exclusive parties, and social media fame. Jamila, on the other hand, had chosen a different path, one of simplicity, hard work, and genuine connection with others. As news of Jamila's appointment spread through the building, tenants and employees alike were struck by her approachability. Unlike her predecessors, who had maintained a distant and aloof presence, Jamila made a point of visiting each business personally. She listened to their concerns, asked thoughtful questions, and offered practical solutions. Her genuine interest in their success was evident in every interaction. The contrast between Jamila and her sisters became even more apparent as they struggled to understand her approach. Victoria, accustomed to wielding influence through her social connections, couldn't fathom how Jamila had gained the respect of the Apex's tenants without hosting a single glamorous event. Adeline, whose life revolved around luxury and appearances, was baffled by Jamila's ability to command attention in her simple attire. "I just don't get it," Adeline confided to Victoria one afternoon. "How can she run that place dressed like that? Doesn't she realize appearance is everything in this world?" Victoria shook her head, equally perplexed. "Maybe it's just a phase. She'll come around eventually, realize she needs to step up her game to be taken seriously." But as the weeks passed, it became clear that Jamila's authenticity was not a phase. It was her greatest strength. Her commitment to living simply allowed her to connect with people from all walks of life. She understood the challenges faced by small business owners because she had managed her own modest property with the same care and attention to detail. The incident at the Diamond Vault had been a turning point, not just for the store, but for the entire building. Jamila's graceful handling of the situation had shown everyone the power of integrity and forgiveness. Instead of seeking revenge or public humiliation, she had chosen to lead by example, inspiring others to examine their own biases and behaviors. As word of Jamila's leadership style spread beyond the Apex, it sparked conversations about authenticity in business. People began to question the notion that success was measured solely by outward displays of wealth and status. Jamila's approach offered a refreshing alternative, one that valued substance over style and genuine connections over superficial networking. Her sisters watched from the sidelines, their initial skepticism slowly giving way to grudging admiration. They saw how Jamila's authenticity had earned her the loyalty and respect of the Apex's tenants in a way their own flashy lifestyles never could. It was a humbling realization, one that forced them to reconsider their own definitions of success and influence. For Jamila, the journey was far from over. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities to test her resolve. But she remained grounded in her values, drawing strength from the very simplicity that others had once mocked. Her father's faith in her abilities had been vindicated, and she was determined to prove that authenticity could be a powerful force for positive change in the business world. As Jamila turned away from the window and got back to work, she thought about the lessons she had learned in the past few weeks. She realized that real power didn't come from fancy clothes or having lots of followers on social media. It came from being true to yourself, respecting others, and leading by example. In a world that often cared more about appearances than what truly mattered, Jamila's commitment to being genuine had become her greatest strength. As Jamila settled into her new role, the tenants of the Apex began to notice subtle shifts in the building's atmosphere. The incident at the Diamond Vault set off a positive change throughout the Apex. Tenants who used to keep to themselves started chatting more in the elevator or lobby. There was a new sense of community, inspired by Jamila's friendly attitude and genuine care for everyone. Many businesses were also inspired by the Diamond Vault's changes and began to rethink how they operated. The high-end fashion store on the 3rd floor started using diverse models in their displays. The tech startup on the 15th floor improved its hiring to create a more inclusive team. Even the old law firm on the top floor, known for being very formal, began creating a more welcoming space for clients of all backgrounds. Jamila's daily walks through the building became a favorite for many tenants. Unlike her predecessor, who was rarely seen, Jamila made sure to be visible and approachable. She knew the names of not just business owners, but also their employees, janitors, and security guards. This simple act of knowing people made a big difference in boosting morale throughout the building. As word spread about Jamila's leadership at the Apex, local business leaders and community organizers took notice. They were curious about the young woman who had turned a prestigious building into a place of inclusivity and respect. Requests for interviews and speaking engagements started coming in, but Jamila stayed focused on her main goal, taking care of the Apex and its tenants. In the local business community, people began talking about the changes at the Apex. At meetings and events, discussions often circled around the Butler girl who was making a difference. Some thought it was just a trend, but others saw the potential for lasting change. One person especially interested was Marcus Rodriguez, who owned a chain of popular restaurants. He had been thinking about how to improve diversity and inclusion in his businesses when he heard about Jamila. Curious, he reached out to her for advice. When they met, Marcus was surprised. He expected a polished executive with a rehearsed speech about corporate responsibility. Instead, he found a young woman dressed simply, speaking from the heart about how important it was to treat people as individuals, not just customers or employees. Jamila shared how growing up in a wealthy family but choosing to live simply shaped her views on business and how to treat others. Inspired by their talk, Marcus made changes in his restaurants. He started by updating the hiring process to remove bias and create more diverse teams. He also introduced a mentorship program for aspiring chefs from underrepresented groups. These efforts improved the work environment and led to happier, more loyal customers. The changes kept spreading. Other businesses in the city noticed the success of the Apex and Marcus's restaurants and began rethinking their own practices. Diversity and inclusion became real priorities, not just words and mission statements. Companies started offering training on bias and cultural sensitivity, and these programs became common in workplaces. Not everyone was quick to change, though. Some long-standing businesses resisted, saying they'd always done things a certain way and saw no need to adjust. But as success stories grew and public opinion shifted, even the most resistant began to reconsider. The local media picked up on the changes. A series of newspaper articles highlighted the Apex and the growing push for inclusive business practices. Jamila, who had stayed out of the spotlight, became a point of interest because of her simple lifestyle and authentic leadership. Over time, the effects of Jamila's leadership became clear. The Apex saw a rise in new businesses wanting space, and employee satisfaction reached new highs. Even the Diamond Vault, once known for being exclusive and biased, became a model of inclusive service, with sales reflecting the positive shift. Jamila's first step was to create an open-door policy for all tenants. Unlike past owners who stayed distant, she made herself available to everyone. She set up regular office hours, allowing anyone in the building to come by and share concerns or ideas. This simple gesture helped create a sense of community that had been missing at the apex for years. She also started a mentorship program, connecting successful businesses with new entrepreneurs. Jamila believed that success should be shared. The program quickly became popular, with experienced leaders eager to guide the next generation. Jamila focused on sustainability too, launching a building-wide recycling program and exploring eco-friendly options like solar panels. These efforts not only helped the environment, but also cut costs for tenants. One of her boldest moves was setting up a community outreach fund. She dedicated a portion of the Apex's profits to support local charities and social programs. Tenants were encouraged to get involved with incentives for those who volunteered or donated. This turned the Apex into more than just an office building. It became a force for good in the city. Despite her growing influence, Jamila stuck to her simple lifestyle. She continued to dress modestly and drive her old car. Her office was practical, without the luxurious decor most top executives have. This down-to-earth approach earned her respect and challenged traditional ideas of what success looks like. Not everyone agreed with her methods. Some said her focus on social responsibility hurt profits, and others felt her modest style didn't fit the Apex's prestigious image. But Jamila stayed true to her belief that real success is about more than money. As news of her leadership spread, other building owners started to pay attention. Some began adopting similar programs, seeing the benefits of being socially responsible. Jamila was invited to speak at events and offer advice, though she remained selective about public appearances. One afternoon, after leaving a meeting with tenants, she overheard two employees talking about her latest initiative, a scholarship for underprivileged students interested in business. "I never thought the Apex would be known for more than just its fancy address," one said. "Yeah, it's like Jamila's made this place stand for something bigger. I'm proud to work here," the other replied. Jamila smiled, moved by their words. Moments like this reassured her that she was on the right path. She knew challenges would come, but she was ready, driven by her commitment to authenticity and positive change. As she walked back to her office, her mind buzzed with new ideas. How else could she use the Apex's resources to tackle important social issues? What more could she do to build a strong sense of community among tenants? As news of Jamila's success at the Apex spread, her sisters, Victoria and Jamila Butler, found themselves in an unfamiliar situation. Used to being in the spotlight, they now watched as their younger sister's influence grew. Their reactions to Jamila's rising success tested their bond and made them face hard truths about their own lives. Victoria, the eldest, was the first to express her confusion. "I just don't get it," she told Adeline during lunch at their favorite fancy restaurant. "How can Jamila run that place dressed like that? Doesn't she know appearance is everything?" Adeline agreed, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "Maybe it's a phase. She'll figure it out and step up her game." But as time passed, it became clear Jamila's approach wasn't a phase. Stories of her leadership and the positive changes at the Apex spread, and people began asking about her everywhere Victoria and Adeline went. "Your sister's doing amazing things at the Apex," a socialite told Victoria at a charity event. "It's so refreshing to see someone care about community and responsibility." Victoria smiled politely, but jealousy stirred inside. She had always been the one admired for her glamorous life. Now Jamila was stealing the spotlight effortlessly. Adeline also struggled with the shift. Her perfectly crafted social media presence, once her pride, suddenly seemed shallow compared to Jamila's real-world impact. She found herself scrolling through her feed of staged photos, wondering if there was more to life than likes and followers. The tension came to a head during a family dinner. As their father Henry proudly shared updates on the Apex, Victoria couldn't hold back. "I don't get why this is such a big deal," she said, sharply. "It's just a building. Jamila's not curing cancer." The room went silent. Jamila looked hurt, and Henry's expression darkened, but before he could respond, Adeline spoke up. "That's not fair, Victoria," she said softly. "Jamila's making a real difference in people's lives. Maybe we could learn from her." Flushed with anger, Victoria stormed out, leaving an awkward silence. In the days that followed, the sisters reflected on their lives. Victoria threw herself into her social events, trying to prove her lifestyle was just as valid as Jamila's. But something felt off. Adeline, on the other hand, became curious about Jamila's work. She began researching social responsibility and even volunteered at a local charity, wanting to experience the fulfillment Jamila seemed to have. Over time, their views shifted. Victoria's resentment slowly turned into respect. She realized Jamila's approach earned a different kind of admiration than what she was used to. Meanwhile, Adeline's curiosity grew into genuine interest. She started using her platform to raise awareness for causes she cared about, adding a new layer to her public persona. As the family dynamic evolved, there were still moments of tension, but a growing sense of respect emerged. Jamila's success had made Victoria and Adeline rethink their own ideas of success and influence, leading them toward personal growth they hadn't expected. As the Butler sisters dealt with their changing roles, Henry Butler quietly observed. He stood at the window of his office, looking out at the city skyline. The apex, his proudest achievement, rose high above the other buildings. It was proof of his years of hard work. But now, it meant something more. The future of the family legacy, placed in Jamila's hands. He smiled, thinking about how Jamila handled the issue with the diamond vault. Her calm under pressure, her commitment to her values, and her ability to turn a bad situation into a chance for growth had exceeded his expectations. Henry remembered the day he decided to give the apex to Jamila. It hadn't been an easy choice. Victoria and Adeline had always been the family's more public faces, with their glamorous lives and connections in high-end real estate. Jamila, with her simple clothes and quiet way, didn't seem like the obvious choice to manage such an important property. But Henry had seen something in Jamila that others hadn't. Her thoughtful way of managing her small building, her real care for her tenants, and her creative ideas for building community showed him a different kind of leadership. One that put people before profits and substance before appearances. Watching the apex thrive under Jamila's leadership filled him with pride. The building wasn't just a symbol of wealth anymore. It was a place of progress, a model for how business could be successful and responsible at the same time. Henry thought about the ripple effects of Jamila's leadership. Other building owners in the city were starting to notice and were creating similar programs. The business world was talking about a new kind of management that valued being real and socially responsible, along with traditional success. Not everyone understood or liked Jamila's methods. Henry had heard doubts from business partners who questioned his decision to give his youngest daughter such a valuable asset. Some even thought that Jamila's simple lifestyle and focus on social issues would hurt the apex's image. But Henry knew better. He always believed true success was about more than just making money. It was about leaving a positive mark. In Jamila, he saw these values come to life, and he couldn't be prouder. As he turned away from the window, Henry looked at a photo on his desk. It was of him and his 3 daughters at a family gathering years ago. Victoria and Adeline were dressed up, smiling with confidence. Jamila stood a bit off to the side, quieter, but with a look of determination in her eyes. He picked up the photo and studied it. He had always loved all his daughters, but he had worried about Jamila sometimes. Her choice to avoid the world of wealth and work quietly in the background made him wonder if she would ever fit into the family business. Now, he realized Jamila hadn't just found her place. she was changing what the family business could be. Her approach was making people rethink what success and leadership really meant, even her sisters. Henry put the photo down, feeling more confident. He knew challenges lay ahead. The business world wasn't always kind to those who did things differently, but he had faith in Jamila's ability to face those challenges while staying true to herself. As he sat down to work, Henry felt excitement about the future. The Butler family business was evolving, becoming more than just a real estate empire. Under Jamila's leadership, it was becoming a force for good in the city. Amid all the changes, Jamila hadn't lost sight of her original goal. But standing in front of the diamond vault again, she faced a tough choice. The shiny store reflected her image back at her, a reminder of how far she had come. She was no longer just a woman looking for earrings. Now, she was the owner of the Apex, a symbol of change in the business world. The situation felt ironic. Months ago, she had been turned away from this very store, judged by how she looked. Now, she could buy anything she wanted, but that wasn't her style. Jamila valued simplicity and being real more than flashy displays of wealth. As she stood there, Jamila thought about everything she'd been through. Her humiliation, the surprise of inheriting the Apex, the challenges, and the positive changes she had made. Each moment had tested her, but also made her stronger and more sure of her values. Inside the store, Elizabeth Cartwright, the owner, saw Jamila through the window. Her face showed a mix of emotions: shame, regret, and a little fear. Jamila watched as Elizabeth hesitated, unsure of what to do. Taking a deep breath, Jamila opened the door. The familiar scent of leather and perfume greeted her. This time, instead of being judged, people looked at her with respect and curiosity. They knew who she was now and admired her for her leadership. Marcus Blackwell, the manager who had dismissed her before, stepped forward nervously. "Ms. Butler," he said, trying to stay professional. "Welcome back to the Diamond Vault. How can we help you today?" Jamila looked at him calmly, seeing the regret in his eyes. "I'm here for the earrings I wanted last time, if you still have them," she said simply. Marcus quickly nodded, relieved. "Of course, Ms. Butler. Right this way." As they walked through the store, Jamila noticed the changes. The staff was more diverse. The displays offered a wider range of styles, and there was a new section for ethically sourced gems. The Diamond Vault seemed to have learned from its mistakes. Elizabeth approached as Marcus fetched the earrings. "Ms. Butler," she said quietly, "I want to apologize again for what happened before. Your leadership has inspired us. We've made a lot of changes thanks to you." Jamila nodded, accepting the apology. "I'm glad to hear that," she said. "Change is hard, but it's important if we want to create a fairer business world." When Marcus returned with the earrings, Jamila looked them over. They were just as beautiful as she remembered. But now, they meant more. They symbolized how far she had come and everything she had overcome. For a moment, Jamila thought about walking away. She could easily buy earrings elsewhere, from a store without the bad memories. But as she looked around at the improved Diamond Vault, she realized that walking away would be too easy. Real leadership meant facing hard situations and helping others grow. "I'll take them," Jamila said. Marcus and Elizabeth visibly relaxed, their relief clear. As she completed the purchase, Jamila felt closure. She had gone from being judged to being respected, all while staying true to herself. As she left the store, earrings in hand, Jamila felt a new sense of purpose. Her journey had taught her the strength of being authentic, the power of forgiveness, and the potential for change, even in unexpected places. She had not only transformed the Apex, but also changed the way businesses approached leadership and responsibility. Jamila's journey from a simple young woman to a leader at the Apex shows how being true to yourself can create big change and how harmful prejudice can be. By sticking to her values, Jamila not only transformed the apex, but also influenced the entire business world's view of leadership and social responsibility. Her story is a reminder that real wealth and influence don't come from how we look or what we own, but from our character, honesty, and desire to make a difference. The changes at the Diamond Vault, once exclusive, but now open and fair to everyone, show how much we can grow when we face our biases and embrace diversity. Jamila's story challenges us to look at our own judgments and how we see others based on appearances. Her success shows that being authentic is the key to making lasting, positive change.